Hello, welcome. This NFL 2022 season is around the corner. Will, Peter, are you ready for another bombastic, fantastic? We're going to quote some Shaggy right here, but are we ready for the 2022 season?
No, it's going to be a hell of a season, man. I think there's a lot of new teams with new looks coming in. There's a lot that's going to happen. And like I said, it's just the start. It's just the start.
Yeah, can't wait to get started. I mean, this season, I have a feeling it's going to be one of the best seasons in NFL history because of what's happened, and this promises to be an exciting season. And I've got one word for Joe Star. You better accept it. He's going to be your quarterback, whether you like it or not.
It's fine. It's fine. I'm all right.
He is Jalen Hurts. So, for people who aren't aware of
Here we go, man.
our fandom within the trio that we are. So, I'm a Colts fan. Peter is a Cardinals fan who will make every single news story turn into some form of relevance towards the Cardinals. I love to wind him up about this.
Yeah.
And Will never shut up about Gardner Minshew. He is the Gardner Minshew stan of this cast.
Yeah, absolutely. Philadelphia Eagles all the way, 100%.
Now,
Right.
well, we have a few things just a few things to talk about before we get a crack at it. So, there are certain things which we won't talk about on the podcast because, well, quite frankly, they've been talked about so much over the past few weeks. We had Peter put up a lovely TikTok about it, and that is the Deshaun Watson situation with regards to the 11-game ban. I think everyone is sick to death about talking and hearing about it. So
Yep.
we are going to refrain from talking about it because it's had so much airtime. There's so much else in the league that needs to be talked about. We are only, a week away from the first game of the season. So we really need to talk about what's happening in all the other teams as well.
Definitely, 100%. It's all about the here and now. And there is a lot to talk about. So there's a lot to talk about on each other's teams as well. So I think when we get to those points, we're definitely going to unload our views and opinions on that for sure.
Well, first of all, the big news of the day. Russell Wilson agrees to a 5-year, $245 million contract extension, including $165 million guaranteed. He had 2 years remaining on his deal when he was signed over from Seattle, so this effectively adds another 2 years on top of that. Thoughts, guys? Because this is top. This is huge news.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think he is 100% deserving of it. Russell Wilson has been the constant professional throughout his whole career. In terms of his preparation, in terms of how he plays through games, all of that has been top notch. In my opinion, if you want to look at if I open up a book and I look up quarterback, like what I want my quarterback to be, forget about his playing style. I'm talking about everything off the field and everything in between his ears. I'm looking at Russell Wilson in the way he prepares. Like, in my opinion, when I heard about his extension, I wasn't even surprised. I was like, yeah, no, seems about right. And it's refreshing that we have a situation in the NFL where someone is getting paid big bucks and there's no question as to whether or not they're deserving of it. Usually there's like, oh, he's a bit older, he hasn't got that long left, injury prone, his play style.
Or it's a Kirk Cousins.
Or, yeah.
It's more than he's deserved.
Exactly. Russell Wilson is 100% deserving. He's done it all. He's done it all on and off the field. And it almost comes to the point where if you don't give him his money, if he were to ask for it and you don't, everyone is looking at you like
they will be absolutely up in arms.
Why don't you
in Broncos territory?
Exactly. Not just that, but if you don't pay him, what does that mean for other QBs who aren't as how can I say, as established or as, you know what I mean, as radiant as Russell Wilson. Like, if he can't get paid, what makes you think like, you see what I'm getting at here? So I think this is a win-win situation, not only for Russell Wilson, but also for the league, to show that if you do everything right, we will reward you. You know, so 100%, I'm happy for him.
Considering it's only an additional 2 years. He was already going to be there for X amount of years. So it's just something. Okay, this is our future. This is the way that we're going to go forwards, and they're gonna have they're building this team around like his ability to pass that ball to guys like they've got good pass catchers.
Yep.
Jerry Jeudy, Cortland Sutton.
Yep, absolutely.
They had to trade away Noah Fant. That is a significant one because I think everybody was really excited to see what Noah Fant would have been able to do with Russ, and then it's like, nope, sorry, bye bye. You're gonna go and be on the Seahawks. You're not gonna be able to have that fun.
Yeah,
you could always find a tyrant, but it would have been nice to see what Noah Fant can do with it. I'm gonna play a bit of a devil's advocate on this one. My devil's advocate is not the fact that Russ doesn't deserve this money. He totally does, and he's one of the top 10 quarterbacks in the NFL. One of those quarterbacks that you can win with. But my devil's advocate is new team. You have yet to see him play, and you give him all this money. I get it. It's Russell Wilson, and I get his pedigree and what he's done in the league.
You know what he's capable
of. But what
I'm
saying is, I know you know what he's capable of, but at least let him play some games.
I don't think he needs to prove it.
Let him do something.
He doesn't need to prove anything, though, does he?
Look,
no. But here's the thing.
I hear what you're saying. I hear what you're saying.
No, let me finish. My devil's advocate is based on the fact that it's a new team. If you get what I'm trying to say. I'm not I'm not saying that he doesn't deserve the money. He does. That's what I'm saying. Mm-hmm. What I'm saying is the timing of it. Like, you were always gonna give him this money.
I think they had to
play some games first to give him the money. He's not gonna hold out if they didn't give him this money. He's not gonna be like, I'm gonna hold out. It's a new team. You've gone to a new team. You want to prove that you're the franchise quarterback for the team. They believe in you. Everybody believes in you. Everybody thinks the Broncos are going to do amazing this year. I believe the Broncos are going to do what they're definitely going to make the playoffs because they've got a quarterback that they need, and they've got a very talented roster. My contention is at least get to see him play because I think he had 2 years on his current deal still. So just get to see him play and then give him the deal. That's all I'm saying. I think there's a timing of it.
I agree with you. On that point, I'll add that I think people want to see what type of Russell are we going to see. You know what I mean? He's going to be good, but we want to see, like, is he going to push this team to that next step?
I think
or
what
are they going to just be a really good team around him? You know what I mean?
If you look at what has been the thing that's handcuffed the Broncos in the last few years,
quarterback play. It's been quarterback play.
They've got the defense.
Yep.
They've got the defensive capability. They had the skill position pieces that they needed. Mm-hmm. Correct?
Yep.
And they had the running backs as well. They had a 2 tandem last season as well. So when you look at all of that, he was the missing piece in the puzzle. And that missing piece in the puzzle, you want to secure that for a longer period than just 2 years. Because 2 years, for that level, for his caliber of player, is not enough. You need to 2 years to build a proper team around. We're not talking about a Brady situation where they're, shoving a bunch of stars and people are trying to do everything just to go and play for him, because it's Brady. This is more of building a team around a player and a philosophy of how they want to play the ball offensively.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I mean, I was talking about this last year, in that poor old Vic Fangio gets dumped off the boat the moment before they get the answer to all of his problems. It's crazy how it's crazy how the league's like that. Like, I think even he knows if I had Russell Wilson with the roster and the way they played, if they were stout, they could stop teams, they could run the ball. They just couldn't. They just didn't have a, how can I say, proficient signal caller. So I think all I'm saying is, if you're a Broncos fan right now, you're in for a treat. Like, it's going to be a really good year for you. I'm not saying you're going to win it all.
No.
Go far.
Look at that division though.
It's
we're going to talk about it next week. We're going to talk about it on Tuesday. So Tuesday we're going to have full prediction of all of the division winners and all the awards, and we're going to make a who's going to be in the Super Bowl prediction as well.
Yeah. One thing I want to add just before we move on. Just before we move on, there's no tape on Russell Wilson with this offense. There is no tape. We're going to be seeing it for the first time. Defensive coordinators, you're going to be seeing it. You can try and elaborate and think about what he might do, but you're going to be seeing it for the first time.
It's going to take some shots.
You're excited, but all I got to say is they're not getting Russell Wilson if Vic Fangio is the head coach.
Okay, true. Yeah, I agree. Fair enough.
Right. Now, injury news from today. Harold Landry of the Tennessee Titans tore his ACL and is likely to be out for the entirety of the season. Now, that is we saw how important he was last year. He netted 12 sacks for the Titans, 10th most in the NFL. Other stats, 22 quarterback hits and 14 tackles for a loss. This is huge for the Titans. This is a significant piece of their defensive capability that is gone for the entire season. For me as a Colts fan, obviously, it's important because that is a piece that's not going to be chasing after Matty Ice. And and he's not exactly the most mobile of quarterbacks.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think this is where like your GM and personal department earn their pay. They've made some questionable decisions in the off season. That much to the huge benefit of my Eagles. I'm not really going to go into that, but when you get rid of a player like that and then you double down on what you have, like a stout defense and heavy run game, when you lose a core piece of that defensive front, you've now got to work on your depth. You've got to have guys that can perhaps try and get that production from other areas of the field. You know what I mean? So it's going to be an uphill struggle for them. But I think because of the way their team is built, they should be able to weather through. But someone else on that roster is going to have to emerge. Maybe not one person, but you.
So if we look at the defensive starters, Jeffrey Simmons, Teo Tart, Danica Autry, Ola Adeni, David Long, Zach Cunningham, and Bud Dupree. If we're talking about the front seven.
Well, it's a bummer, and normally sometimes you wouldn't expect this kind of thing. I mean, you can't predict when someone tears an ACL.
Correct.
I feel sorry for the Titans at this moment in time with Harold, who's a big piece of their defense, especially their pass rush unit. I think what this does is that it puts the spotlight on Bud Dupree. I think Bud Dupree signed for the Tennessee Titans. Last offseason, and I don't think he played well because I think his first year in Tennessee, he only had 3 sacks and he signed a big money deal. So I think now is the time for Bud Dupree to step up. Simply, you're just gonna have to step up and be.
We'll get onto that question that I've highlighted a little bit later on. So after we finish talking about it, yeah, he's definitely gonna have to step up. I think it's huge. I think it will have a massive impact because one thing that the Titans managed to do. One thing that they managed to do last season, particularly, was in games that were close, they were able to close it out with some very good defensive play. Not only just the running game, but some stout defensive play from getting sacks. Getting opposition behind the chains, and having Landry out of that means that I think. Would you, without tempting fate about next week, and our predictions. But would you push things even more towards the Colts' favour with regards to the AFC title? More closer, based upon just one injury alone? Because you have to face them twice.
I wouldn't say so because the Ken is still there, and he didn't get in. He's fully fit. He's ready to go, and he could roll 200 plus yards any day you give to him. So he's still a threat for the
He's
Titans
definitely still.
offensively.
Okay.
I mean,
still a threat.
even if their defense is not up to par, they could. I say one thing about Tennessee is that Vrabel could. It's a little bit of the old school mindset whereby he could get the offense to be more run based, like similar to how the Patriots used to grind teams down. So he could still get a team to perform, and he's a great motivating coach. Certainly, the Colts are now like the favorite to win the division with this injury news. But I wouldn't count Tennessee out just yet.
I'm not counting any chickens because I know how the Colts have the inability to play in Jacksonville, which, as we discussed last
Matty
season,
Ice would change that.
I think Matty Ice will finally break that hoodoo. But question from the chat room from Mr. Frontman Finn: which NFC East quarterback is on the hotter seat, Dak or Jalen?
Oh man.
Answer
Man
correctly.
my own dreams. Man
Now,
off my own dreams.
now, Will, as our resident Eagles fan, without mentioning Gardner Minshew, which one's on a hotter seat? Because I think Dak's got. Well,
It's Dak.
they've paid Dak though, haven't they?
Yeah, it's Dak.
It's Dak's
It's
on a
Dak.
shorter leash, but I don't think he is
absolutely.
because they haven't got as much invested in him monetarily, and we know how Jerry loves his guys too much.
Yep. I mean, this all started years ago when the Dallas Cowboys drafted Zach Martin. That was a change in how they run that organization. Jerry Jones was taking a step back slightly, not a lot, just a small step back to allow his brother to sort of take a bit of control as far as running the team. His son, sorry, to take a bit of control on the team. Dak's a made man, like he's paid, but the thing is, the expectations of this team, the pressure on this team,
The expectations
really
is
on
high,
Dak.
is very
It's
high.
It's high, but I think there's been some rumblings. Like he hasn't really done a lot this off season, and there's been guys that have been leaving the team and haven't been replaced. You know, so he's scrambled. Like I think they brought in Emerson Griffin, I believe, from Minnesota. They brought him in. You know, they've filled up a few more holes over there, but it's just not enough. They've recently lost their left tackle, their starting left tackle. So everyone knows it's going to be an uphill struggle, you know. And then you have Mike McCarthy as your head coach. There are people in that organization to this day that still look at who is it, Dan Quinn. Everyone's just saying, "Where's Dan Quinn going to run the show?"
So, on that tackle situation, Jason
Yeah.
Peters was headed to Dallas to meet with the Cowboys.
Yeah. Oh, well.
I mean, but he's okay. He's not like.
He's not going to
I mean,
be.
he's serviceable, but he's not like
Yeah.
the elite Jason Peters that we knew.
Hey, he's still an Eagle. Like, even if he ends up on their roster, I just hope he doesn't go because he'll spill the beans, and he's been really serviceable for us. Now, what I want to add to that point, Frontman Finn, is Jalen isn't even in this debate because he's never really been the straight up quarterback for the Eagles. You know, Howie Roseman, true Philly fans
The
know
shade,
he has
man,
to he has to take that next step. You know, I'm an Eagles fan, and for me, I want to see my team take the best foot forward. I'm not like, oh, you know, Jalen Hurts is our guy. No, I'm looking at the finer details. I watched that stinker of a game against the Buccaneers in the playoffs, and we weren't expected to win that game. That was fine, but the way he was throwing that ball, he looked like a high school kid going into his freshman year in college.
It was his
And
first
Pete,
club,
I
yeah.
think you know because you were watching, Pete, and you agreed with me when you said, you know what, Will, you're right. I see what you mean. He was missing clean, easy throws. You know, of course, it's his first playoff game. He's a bit nervous, but I think
But sometimes
realistically,
normally you shake it off
yeah.
within the game.
If you're looking at like,
No, not all QBs does.
if you're
Peyton
looking
took
at
a
which,
while before he shook it off.
yeah, if you're looking at like which cemented NFC East QB is more under pressure, it's Dak. But if you look at that question in another way, I think Jalen is playing for his future. So I think it's more the pressure is more on him. Eagles will be okay. We'll be able to move on from him if we have to. But I think the pressure is more on Jalen Hurts, understanding that this is a huge year as far as him staying and going forward as the QB in the next 3 to 4 years. So if he doesn't produce this year, all I can say is we're going to be looking for other guys on the team. We're going to be looking to draft new guys. So fingers crossed. I hope that answers your question. I'm trying not to lay into the guy too. I'm trying not to lay into Jalen Hurts too much because I want him to succeed.
Listen. Okay, so
I want him to succeed,
I'll make it brief.
but. No, continue, Peter. I'm just taking the mic.
I'll make it brief. You need to understand. You don't. To be honest, you kind of don't want him to succeed. You kind of want him to be quarterback. You gotta be honest here. You gotta be real with the people here. Okay. Okay. He's your quarterback, whether you like it or not. This team has been built for him, right? Getting AJ Brown, your roster is not looking top to bottom. One of the best rosters in the offseason. Incredible job by Harvey Roseman for building such an incredible roster this offseason, bringing in great guys, great draft. Had one of the best drafts this offseason. You guys have great free agents that are coming into filling. For the first time in a long time, you actually have a linebacking course. Your defense is stacked. But here's the thing, though. Jalen Hurts, I believe, is going to turn around this year. He's going to prove to be a franchise.
You think he's going to make that step up in the way that Josh Allen made the step up?
Not as far as Josh Allen.
No, not as no. But I'm not talking about the stratospheric step up. I'm talking about he's going to make that big jump so that he's established as the QB1 for the Eagles properly.
Yeah, I think so. Because the thing is, like, you have two bona fide wide receivers now. Like, you have like a 1A and a 1B in AJ Brown and Devonta Smith. So one of them is going to be open because you're not going to double. Both guys can't be double each game, and then your tight end Gerda is also a very good tight end that he can throw the ball to.
He's extremely
he has weapons.
good.
He has
as well.
a very good offensive line around him. Last year, how many passing touchdowns did Jalen Hurts have? I think it was something like 16.
If we look at Jalen Hurts' stats, stat for last season, he had 16 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, passer rating of 87.2.
Okay, so
over 3,000 yards.
Okay, so say he throws for
Passing.
4,000 yards, have, let's say, between 25 to 27 passing TDs, with like 10 or 11 INTs. Does that answer your question? Well?
Do you know how many yards rushing he had last year?
How many?
It says here 784.
I'm not surprised by that because
10 touchdowns.
See, he's a dual threat, so he gives you that capability. So let's say he up his touchdown production to the 25-27 range, have like between 8 to 10 interceptions, and have similar rushing stats. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, no, I think if he takes that next step, I'll be more than happy, and I think Harry Roseman as well. He'll be more than happy to keep him on. The main thing is how he's really, really smart with this is he's playing it like this. We drafted you late, all right? Either way...
It wasn't late. It was a second-round pick.
For a quarterback that they intended to have as the starter. But what they're saying is, look, you're going to be playing for free.
Second-round pick is a high pick, well, it's not a late pick.
You're going to be playing for free for the next 4 years. We're going to see what you can do. If you don't produce, it's okay. We haven't got that pressure. We can move on from you if we have to. So I think, like I said, for him, the pressure is more on Jalen and him understanding that he's playing for his future. You know what I mean? As far as how the organization sees it, because the way I look at it, I think this offense and defense is in a really good position. We can move signal callers here and there. You know, I'm not going to mention his
But
name.
here's what I'm saying though. With the stat
I've
line
turned
I
it
just
into Lord
gave you,
Voldemort for you, haven't I?
with the stat line I just gave you, and let's say the Eagles win the division, and he has that stat line, you'd be hard pressed to try and see like, okay, we're gonna change quarterbacks.
Oh
Like,
no, I agree. We wouldn't be looking for another quarterback, 100%. You know, and I think
you know
we
what
will
I'm
win the
saying?
division as well. So
So that's what I'm saying. So if you guys win the division, you guys are not gonna look for another quarterback, and Jalen Hurts gets cemented as your franchise quarterback, and you have to love him. Okay, that's the be it end it all. At the end of the day, I agree with you. This is his season to prove it. So we'll find out 2022 if he can prove it and cement his status as the Philadelphia Eagles quarterback. Because I know Harry Roseman, he'll go get another quarterback, but we'll talk when the season ends.
So speaking of somebody who didn't cement his place as the starting quarterback of his team last season, and that's Sam Darnold. He is on the IR. He is out for 4 to 6 weeks. Obviously, he is a backup now to Baker, but that really kind of puts, well, it doesn't, it completely and utterly puts to bed his kind of status within that team, because by the time he comes to get fit again, the season's fully in flow, and he'll be much an afterthought really there.
yeah,
He's
no,
done.
it's yeah, no, I like Sam. You know, I've seen him talk on other podcasts. I like Sam as a person. I'm not saying as a quarterback, but I think he has certain tools, but he's never been able to get it together. You know, and he's tried in two different organizations. So that's what kind of
Also,
makes me a bit
it
skeptical.
really didn't help last season that CMC went down and literally
Yeah.
the entire offense just disappeared.
Absolutely. I think with him, he's going to be a backup now. I think Baker came in there with more experience, with more confidence, and he literally came in there and just took the job, took it off him by force, as in he won the QB
He won that
battle at
battle,
camp,
yeah.
at camp. And the good thing about the NFL is it's a meritocracy. So the best player will get the job. So I think for Sam Darnold now, he needs to just focus on getting better. You can carve out a niche in the NFL as a backup, especially
You can get paid very well.
Yeah, it sounds really defeatist here, but I'm like, you can carve out a niche as a high flight backup. Like, he's not going to be no cynical Wallace or anything like that. This guy's going to come in and he's going to be like a really serviceable backup that a lot of teams, and if he plays his cards right, he might have a longer career than Baker. If you think about it, if he plays his cards right, he could become that guy that can go from team to team, provide you with some kind of stability in your backup role. He's still young. Like, he came into the league, he was basically still a kid. You know, I don't even think he's 24 yet. Is he 24, 25?
Looking at his
Yeah.
age,
I don't think he is.
he's 25. He's just turned 25 in the off season.
He's just turned 25, so he's still young, and I think he can really carve out his niche in the NFL as like a career backup. It sounds really defeatist, but I think it's just the way it is. He's had 2 opportunities to become successful. Both teams have bought into him and said, "Look, we're going to support you. We're going to give you a chance," and he's not been able to deliver. And I don't think another team's going to come along and say, "You know what? I can do it different. I can do what 2 other NFL teams couldn't with the resources, the staffing, and the personnel that they have. I'm going to do it different." I don't think that's going to happen. So I think in terms of him being a starting quarterback in the NFL, that door's kind of closed, and now he should start looking into being like a career backup. I'm sorry, Sam. You're a cool dude, though, 100%.
He's done. His career is finished.
Well,
Okay.
his career as
Here's
a
the thing.
starter is finished.
Okay. So here's the thing: even as a backup, I don't think he's going to be a backup that can come in and resurrect his career. The reason why I say that is this, because Sam Darnold was drafted on the third overall pick. You can say that the Jets was part of the reason why he failed. But also coming into the NFL, where everybody that had his scouting report said that his mechanics were not, there was something funky about his mechanics that he needed to work on. Got to the NFL, I didn't see him improve upon his mechanics from the way his delivery was. And at the same time, he didn't show anything in all his years as a starter. And this might sound really harsh, but what I'm saying is, from what we've seen of NFL starters, when you get given chance upon chance, right, you have to show something. Like Baker Mayfield, for instance, before this past season, I think his sophomore season when he led the Browns to playoffs, he was on form. Baker was playing. He showed that he can play. He showed he can be a franchise quarterback. Now, when you talk about Justin Herbert, for instance, the Chargers haven't made the playoffs in his first 2 seasons, but he has shown enough for them to believe that he is a franchise quarterback. So, as a quarterback, you can show something even though your team is losing, even though you're part of a losing franchise, right? Detroit Lions, for years, it took Matthew Stafford quite a while before they even made the playoffs, but he always showed that he had a talent, he had a moxie. I personally haven't seen that from some Darnold, and his career as a starter is over. And I agree with you guys that he's going to be a career backup. But is he going to be a backup that's going to get a chance to be able to resurrect his career again? No. He's probably going to be a backup that can maybe mentor a rookie quarterback somewhere down the road, but it will take a while. But I think at this point, with him being on IR, it's done. Because the thing is, and when they traded for Baker Mayfield, you knew this guy was going to come in and compete with you.
We knew that he was going to come in and take the job. We knew that.
No, but if you know someone's coming to take your job, it's almost like Sam Darnold just handed it to him. I didn't really see any fight, like throughout the whole training camp.
I think the mind was made up from the hierarchy that it was already 70-30 and he only needed camp just to reaffirm that. That's all
if
it
you
was,
were,
I think.
If the team was confident on Sam, they wouldn't have brought in someone like Baker. They would have basically said, we're going to stick with Sam. We're going to bring in someone that can support him, not someone that can usurp him, someone that can support him. So I think they were already, just like Dilly said, 70%.
They're already out the door on him.
And they were telling Sam, look, show us why we should stay with you.
Yeah, but that's the thing. He didn't show why they should stay with him, though. That's what I'm trying to say. Like, you know the guy is coming. The organization is going to move to Baker. In preseason, if Sam had performed extremely well, it would have given him a thought.
It would have raised a couple of eyebrows.
Exactly.
The right kind of...
Let's hang on here, because Sam has really fought for this job right now, and we've got a decision to make. But he never did that.
Okay, now moving on to another quarterback battle. So somebody who we know is not going to be the starter this season signed a 1-year contract, but it includes a no-trade clause. Jimmy G. Thoughts on this? Because it has a no-trade clause.
I kind of feel with what's happening in San Francisco, the more I hear about this whole Jimmy G thing, the more I start thinking to myself,
it's a restructured. Yeah, it's a restructured contract. Sorry, yeah.
Yeah, I keep telling myself, what are the coaches seeing? You know, what are they seeing in Trey that's making them perhaps hesitant? You know, what are they seeing that in Trey that's leading to Jimmy G still being on this roster and them fighting to perhaps keep him on the roster? At some point, you have to move on and bring in someone else to back up Trey that's serviceable, but you have to basically you can't keep him in the room.
So not only do they have they have a no trade clause, so therefore he's kind of guaranteed to be there within the year, but he's also guaranteed he's also got a no tag clause, which means
they can't tag and trade him.
They can't tag him, and so he's free to move at the end of the season, But then he's also free if it all goes absolutely belly up this season. Could there be a situation where 2023 season we're here talking again and it's the Jimmy G show again for the 49ers?
Look,
It possibly might be. Okay, so my take on it is this. I think the one word that keeps coming to mind is inconsistency. I think coming into the season, the coaches, based on his preseason games, training camp performance, they don't think Trey Lance has been consistent enough for them to feel comfortable with him being the starter for the whole season. They're still gonna go with him and have belief that once the game starts playing, he improves as the season goes on. It gets better and better. But they can't say for certain. They don't have absolute confidence, because if they did, Jimmy G would have been traded a long time ago, right?
So nobody really wanted him, did they?
No. There were teams that were interested. It's just the 49ers put a high.
Yeah, but for the price, nobody wanted him.
Yeah, for that price, nobody wanted him.
Yeah,
but the season makes everyone humble.
Yeah,
the season makes everyone humble.
Pay his contract though, because I know he had like a $20 million or $20-something million salary. Teams were willing to pay that. The starting salary wasn't the problem. He was
set to make $24.2 million in his base salary, and now it is now it's 6.5.
See, that was fine. What the problem was because teams were not prepared to give up a first or 2 second round picks for Jimmy G. And that's what the 49ers were seeking. They set his trade value so high that teams didn't come in to trade for him.
Also, with the surgery that he had in the off-season, meant that teams definitely weren't really going to... And the market for him was very quiet because of that injury, and people weren't able to see him in action because he couldn't throw.
That's true. But believe it, if a team was interested, the 49ers was like, okay, give me a 5th round pick. A team will work out a deal, tell Jimmy that we're going to trade for you, we're going to give up the 5th round pick, but we have to restructure a contract. And he would have been fine with a restructure. Same as he did with the 49ers, if it meant he's going to have the opportunity to compete for the starting job. Now, the problem here is his contract and the situation with the 49ers. And I feel like the 49ers want Jimmy back, because if anything, if Trey Lance is not consistent enough, if Trey Lance is not performing as they expected, then they could always go back to Jimmy, because Jimmy knows the offense. And the funny thing is, the 49ers have a winning record with Jimmy G. They do not have a losing record. He's actually played well in the system. It's just that I think his injuries has been the key factor to why they were trying to find a franchise quarterback that can be permanent. I think if Jimmy G didn't have injuries, he will still be the quarterback for the 49ers till today.
Yeah, there's that, and his choke jobs are supreme choke jobs. Like when Jimmy G chokes in a game, it's not something you can recover from. He always finds a way to choke big time, but that's neither here nor there. What I want to say,
okay, one second before you go. In a Super Bowl, right? Here's where we talk about talent versus hard work and savvy and arm strength, right? That deep ball, Pat Mahomes, Kyler Murray, Russell Wilson,
Josh Allen,
they can hit that in their sleep. Do you know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
Jimmy just didn't have the arm strength to hit that deep ball.
Yep.
And that's why they drafted Trey. Now, Trey has the arm strength, but
he's just a little bit erratic.
Yeah, he's a bit erratic and he's a little bit raw. I think the 49ers right now, I mean, hats off to them. They've done a really good job, and I think they understand that they're in like a win now mode. Like, they can't afford to have a bad season. If they were a bad team, I think Jimmy Garoppolo is no longer on that roster, because they're ready to go 100% in with Trey and just see what they can do. But because they know they're right on the edge, they're a team that can go all the way. They don't want to have any drop off. They don't want their seasons being derailed by having perhaps a young quarterback coming in, getting injured, and then you're in a worse situation. So hats off to the 49ers for keeping him on the team. But at the same time, I feel as though the more and more this plays out, like one thing's for sure, at the end of this season, no matter what happens, they need to move on 100%. Because I think at this point, you'd then be looking at spoiled milk with Trey Lance. Like, you can't keep him on that team and just keep him wrapped in bubble wrap and not willing to play him. Because at some point, he's going to be like, why did you draft me? You know, he'll be heading into his third year and he hasn't played any meaningful snaps live in a game. Well, he has played in a game before, but it's been mainly mop-up duty. You know what I mean? But he can't play any like real snaps in a game. And then what? You've got 2 more seasons with him, and then what? You know?
I mean, the thing is that Trey's gonna play this year, right? But I think
he's gonna play a lot.
Yeah, he's gonna play a lot.
People need to temper their expectations for Trey, and I don't know what we're gonna get. But the reason why I'm cautious, and the reason why I'm saying what I'm about to say, is because people like to compare Trey with Patrick Mahomes, right? But here's a fundamental difference. Patrick Mahomes played 3 years college football with the Texas Tech Red Raiders, or whatever the nickname is. He played 3 solid years. So he had experience. He had played football a lot. Trey Lance has not played a lot of football since high school. He literally played just 1 season. Now, you could say, okay, Kyler Murray also played 1 season of college football. But he won the Heisman, and he played at the Big 12, which is a far better conference than the FCS level, which is true.
We know about
Kyler, man. You could have just said he played Div 2. Like, you didn't have to bring in Kyler.
No, I'm just trying to. Okay, find me a quarterback that played just 1 season. I'm just trying to. That's the only one that came to mind.
Kyler was at Texas A&M.
Well, no. Let's talk about it. Well, you could have mentioned the other North Dakota State player.
Carson Wentz.
Carson Wentz.
No, but he
played longer.
3 seasons. He
played longer. He played longer.
I'm trying to find people that played 1 year.
But he played longer, and he played longer, and he's still a car crash. But he's still a car crash.
He played longer, but it's Div 2. So I think what's going to happen now is teams really have to be skeptical and have to do their research when you bring in Division 2 athletes, only because the speed of the game between that and Division 1 is different. You know, not only did Trey have to overcome that, but he had to overcome not having played football. You know, he's very talented, but I think the 49ers, especially now, they've realized they've had a large project, and they're still working on that project. You know, we will see him play this year, but I want everyone to temper their expectations and understand that the Trey Lance we see come out isn't going to be who the 49ers drafted. They're still working on him.
Okay, so there were rumblings in the off-season about Debo wanting to carry the ball less, and whether or not carry the ball rather than he wants to catch the ball more as a wide receiver rather than be used as a running back. But do we think that's actually going to be the case, or do we think they're still going to be utilising him that way because he's that dynamic and he can just thrust that team towards wins?
Well,
translation.
They are. Because translation, you got to give him $25 million. He got his money. So basically, he's now a wide out. He wasn't a wide out when he was waiting for his money. Now he's got his money.
when you pay him wide out money, you're going to be a wide out because you're not going to have him.
I think
hitting
this is within
the line all the time.
I think this is within the interest of both sides, the player and the team. One, Debo wants to keep his body healthy. He doesn't want to take the pounding that he takes.
They've got Elijah Mitchell as well, so
yeah, he wants to keep himself healthy because usually when you get paid, especially when you're a young player, you might get another go at the table later on in your career. So he wants to last that out, and he's not going to do that running between tackles, taking kill shots from linebackers. But
here's the thing, though.
And the team. Yeah.
Here's the thing. Well, we haven't seen Debo be an out wide receiver and accumulate the yards that he's accumulated.
That's because he's not.
Here's the thing. You want to be here's the thing Debo is not seeing. The way the 49ers use you,
it makes you so valuable.
It makes you so valuable, and you're an all-pro the way they use you. Now, if you want him to just strictly play you as a wide receiver,
then he's relying more on Trey Lance for him to shine.
And then And then,
He wants to
and
stay
not only
healthy.
that, it makes their offense. It breaks down like the dynamic effects of the offense. Because when Debo's in the backfield, their offense is so dynamic, and it becomes impossible for them to be
Also, you
stopped.
can, but also they can use it kind of like as a decoy
Oh no,
as
it's not
well.
gonna work. I can
Defensive
imagine
coordinators are smart, bro. They would
game
know when you're being
time.
used as a decoy.
Game time will be hilarious. I just hope we get that game mic'd up because if I'm a linebacker, if I'm a will linebacker and I'm lining up and I see Debo Samuel motion out the slot, you know what I'm gonna say? I'm gonna be like, "Oh no, don't worry about him. He's a wide receiver. We ain't gonna worry about." That's the first thing that's gonna be coming out of his mouth, But I think it works for both sides. I think Debo's trying to keep himself healthy, and the 49ers also trying to protect their investment by keeping him healthy, not making him run through the line of scrimmage as often. But that being said, I agree with Pete. Let's be real. We haven't seen him as a pure wide receiver. You know what I mean? I think he's used at his best when he's a Swiss Army knife. So at some point, one side is going to crack. Once he's played a few games and he's like, man, I'm not hitting the numbers I hit last year. My Madden rating's going down. So then he's going to be like, you know what? In order for me to stay relevant and to keep this thing high octane, I need to be that Swiss Army knife. And the 49ers as well might get frustrated and say, look, we were winning games, we were dominating games when we had him working out of the backfield, working out in the slot. And the fact that now we only have him as an outside threat, it's hurting our offense, especially with Trey Lance. You need a guy like that there. I wouldn't be surprised if the 49ers start evaluating through the draft, maybe seeing if there's a few more guys that are willing to do what Debo's not ready to do, and they can perhaps maybe bring in his replacement sooner than you think. And I know you think that's kind of heresy and that's way too early. He just got paid. But trust me, if he's not willing to do the dirty work, they're gonna find someone with a similar skill set. That's all I'm saying.
Not everybody. That's the thing. Everyone was trying to find the next Debo Samuel, correct?
Yep.
But players with that unique set of traits don't come around very often. So I think it's going to be interesting to see how they mix up Elijah Mitchell, whether they every now and again they put him into the backfield. The thing is, every time they put him into the backfield doesn't mean they have to run the ball. Because if they do, then that brings predictability into it. So let's see how that goes. Speaking of running backs, the Ravens have signed, their fifth running back, Kenyon Drake. And now, if you look at their running back room, they have J.K. Dobbins, Mike Davis, Kenyon Drake, Justice Hill. Oh, that's four, but we know Lamar's the kind of like the 1B anyway when it comes to running backs.
That's a stacked running back room, and I know the Ravens is built around the run, which makes sense. But usually you have a guy that's a surefire 3-down back.
They have a committee.
They have a committee. And it's a really good committee. J.K. Dobbins, Mike Davis are both proven, and they can both play. Kenyon Drake's that speed guy, that sort of big play guy that hasn't quite lived up to his expectations in Miami. What was the other team he played for? I believe, did he play for your Cardinals, Pete? No? Or am I getting him confused? Yeah, so he played at Arizona as well, and he's never quite lived up to that expectation as
he had
Kamara like guy.
So he had one full season with the Cardinals in 2020. Last year he was on Vegas, but he was released August 23rd by the Raiders and picked up only 8 days later by the Ravens. Now, if you look at his best season that he's had in his career, is 955. So he had his best year in Arizona. 955 yards at 4 yards a carry, 10 touchdowns. He was averaging 15 attempts per game. So he was running the ball quite a fair bit out of that backfield. Now, the Ravens themselves, we know that they're run heavy, but if you look at their wide receiver room, so The wide receiver room is Rashad Bateman, Devin Duvernay, James Prochet, Demarcus Robinson, Tylen Wallace. That's it. And, well, you have another receiver in Mark Andrews, who's extremely good. But
I think they're just doubling down on their run game. But it's just strange that you have so many good backs on your team. You know, Mike Davis is good. J.K. Dobbins is good. So usually you have a guy that's the breadwinner, and then you have guys off him that can also play and work. Like my Eagles, we're a committee, you know, but we don't have that kind of like insane.
they should not be a committee. They should not be. I'm a Miles Sanders stan. I am
So
the
am I.
Miles Sanders stan.
But his time's up, man. He's going into his last year, bro. He ain't getting paid. His time's up. But we'll talk about that later on.
They have done
They've
that
ruined
boy
his
dirty.
career.
They
I feel
have
sorry
done that
because
boy dirty.
he could have been a really good back, and I think he will be for another team. But regardless of that, if we go back to the Ravens, it just seems like they're just doubling down on the run because they're stacking that backfield. They're going to commit to that. So yeah, but it's rare to see backs of that caliber all on one backfield. Usually, when it's like that, two gotta go, and you know they keep like the fourth guy. You know, but I don't know. We'll see how it works. But they're not having. They don't want to have flashbacks of last year where they lose two backs and they can't get it done. They're making sure that no matter what happens injury wise,
we'll have all the backs.
it's like
they're all ours.
but like if JK goes down, you know, it's all right, say no more. We have Mike Davis, you know, we're not gonna, you know what I mean? If Mike Davis, okay, we've got Kenyon Drake. Hopefully we'll all stay healthy, but I think they're not.
But then you have but then I think when you have less players playing in wide receiver,
Yeah,
then that kind of you counterbalance that effectively.
the talent in skill position is in their backfield, so I think they're doubling down on it. So
Peter, you were going to say?
You guys, I agree with what you guys were saying. At the end of the day, he's just a depth piece, and injury insurance. If J.K. Dobbins and Mike Davis are fit, I don't think he's gonna get many snaps with the Ravens. So I think you're right. He's there for the insurance in case of injuries and just being a depth piece. I think most of the running game is gonna be on J.K. Dobbins, and I think one of the frustrating things last year was with the injury that J.K. Dobbins had and was out for the whole year, because I think he was primed to have a Jonathan Taylor type season with the Ravens based on what he did in his rookie year.
That
he was
high?
poised.
You think he's going to have that high of a season?
Yeah, because he had a very impressive training camp, and that preseason he looked like he was ready to explode.
That's a bold status.
I know it is, but
in my highly biased opinion as a Colts fan.
Yeah. But I put his talent level on Jonathan Taylor's, but we haven't seen the production to that level. But he has comparable talent.
Okay. Now we're going to move in to the little trade section. So there have been a few trades this week. First one on the list. I think it will put a bit of a smile on Will's face. Jalen Reagor is no longer on the Eagles. He's been traded to the Vikings. To be honest, what I'm thinking is, why on earth would the Vikings go after him?
you know, I think this is like the age-old. You know what? He was a first-round pick for a reason. I think he was on the Vikings board as well. Remember, he was in that round robin of top 5 guys at the.
But they have
receiver
changed their
position.
whole hierarchy.
I know.
Yep.
Yep, but I think he was on that board, and all it takes is for someone coming in to have a high grade on a player that they wish they were able to draft and bring in. They obviously see that he hasn't been successful in Philly, you know, but maybe they think they can rehabilitate him and they can get that talent out of him. Sometimes it's not necessarily about the player. Sometimes the player has to land in the right situation, you know.
So he's going to be their wide receiver 4.
Yeah, I think that'll work because at Philly, that was what he was going to be. One thing I will say, Jalen Reagor was dealt like a hard hand because I really think he should be a number 3. He should have never been a number 2 or 1. So I don't know why they drafted him and expected him to be a number 2 or 1. But what happened with him was that he was going up against the number 1 corner. the number 2 corner. In fact, the number 1 corner most of the time until Devontae Smith came in. Then he started getting some balls thrown his way. You know, last season they had Goddard and Devontae taking the number 1 and 2. You know, like long corners having to line up against Goddard, so that opened things up, and he was a bit more productive. But his real place is in the number 3 slot. Like he's a number 3 or 4 wide receiver on a team.
So
he needs someone else to take the pressure off him.
So if you look at how they've put on the depth chart on ESPN, so you've got Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen, KJ Osborne, and then Jalen Rager. You've got the 2 Jalens, Jalen Rager, Jalen Naylor, Blake Pearl, Busy Johnson, and Thomas Hennigan are on the IR. And then in tight end they've got Irv Smith, who they do tend to pass the ball to. So it's going to be interesting. He is a firm backup, but I don't think he's going to be able, unless somebody goes down and he manages to pave a niche for himself. He's going to be a very bit part player, because they don't throw the ball a lot because they run the ball so much as well.
Yeah,
are you talking about the Vikings?
The Vikings, because they've got Dalvin Cook and Alexander Mattison in the backfield.
Yeah,
I think know. But their new head coach came from the Rams, and he's poised to. I think they're going to throw the ball a bit more this year, play action, and that really suits Kirk Cousins. And I think maybe a change of scenery might do good for Jalen Rager. I mean, when I think this is more from. I think it is probably the head coach saying, if it's available, let him come in. Let's see what he can do within my offense. I think that's up, because we know Thielen and Jefferson are established as the number 1 and number 2. So they're the top 2 options within the progression. So, and number 3, you could say Osborne. KJ Osborne's like the number 3. But you never know. I think maybe sometimes a new scenery might work for somebody, and I think that might work for Jalen Rager.
So speaking of somebody who also was the butt of many jokes from Will, who was traded to the Seattle Seahawks, and that is JJ Arcega-Whiteside, who now is currently sat on the Seahawks practice squad.
Yeah, says a lot, right? Like, I think I have a lot of respect for Howie Roseman, and I like how he's fixed his mistake. You know, like if you think about it, Jalen Rager and Arcega-Whiteside were essentially taken in back-to-back in terms of drafts, like year to year. So that was a huge cock-up, considering you had guys like DK still available. You had guys like Justin Jefferson still available. He messed up twice. And what he's done, you know, is he's been able to turn those two, not through the assets he's gained from getting rid of them or anything like that, but he was able to fix that problem in that he was able to draft Devontae, and he brought in AJ Brown. And then he got rid of the 2 mistakes he made at wide receiver. Essentially, he's turned back the clock, and he's added those 2 guys to the roster. So I think this is a washing of his hands, and he's done a good job. I mean, I wish Jalen all the best. I think he just needs a chance, a fresh start. But I can't deny I'm happy, because he wasn't really adding anything to that wide receiver room. Quez Watkins came from the practice squad and is playing really well. He played really well down the stretch last season, and I think he took that number 4 receiver slot, took it, and it wasn't really a competition. Jalen lost that battle, you know. So I think that speaks testimony to what kind of a player Quez Watkins is.
This is almost turning into an Eagles podcast, but we have another trade with regards to the Eagles. The Saints traded Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, who predominantly played out of the slot for the Saints, to the Eagles. They didn't get a lot for him. The compensation was Philadelphia sent New Orleans a 5th round pick for 2023 and a 6th round for 2024. And they got back a 2025 7th round pick. So They didn't get in for much whatsoever. Thoughts on how this is going to affect kind of the defensive makeup for the Eagles?
Yeah, no, I think we're building like a curtain, like over the top. A lot of people don't forget that we got Bradbury as well, and then we've got big play Slay on the other side too. Now these guys are starting corners in any most. If you look at a lot of the teams, unless you've got a transcendent corner, these guys are both
Although
starting corners.
although they're expecting, so from what Tom Pelissero was saying on NFL Network is that he is expected to be a full-time safety.
Who Gardner
Yeah.
or Brad? Oh, okay, Gardner. Yeah, yeah. So I'll get onto that. But what I was saying is he's building a curtain around that team. He's making sure that every quarterback we play in our division is gonna have to is not gonna be able to beat us through the air, and we're gonna funnel them in to the inside where we have a really stout defensive line. So he's covering both sides. You know what I mean? He's covering the front and the outside. So we have like really good players on the outside that can go one on one. And I've seen those battles between Tyreek and Bradbury. I've seen the mini camp battles, and Bradbury's he's bringing the heat. Like he's ready to play. So it's going to be really good out there. I think with the
Didn't Tyreek burn him?
He was right there. He slipped on the grass, but the fact that you got a big body corner that can run with Tyreek Hill, that's impressive. You can watch the Twitter feed. I watched the Twitter feed. He was right on his hip. This wasn't he slipped. That's all it was. Slay as well. I'll send you the link now.
What it is that Chauncey Gardner-Johnson is a 1-year loan, pretty much, because at the end of the season, he is a free agent. So it's going to be he's going to have to cement his place, prove his worth in that team, and then earn that contract.
Well, I think he's going to earn it because he's going to send him play. And I think Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, I think he's kind of like he's your Malcolm Jenkins replacement, essentially, in your backfield. Because his body type and his profile is sort of like built similarly to Malcolm Jenkins. And he to me, I like him. He's a good DB. He's a good safety. And he sort of like runs up and completes your secondary. Bradbury was also a good acquisition on the outside. So your team defensively is looking into shape. Is looking in shape, and I actually like the move. I feel like you want to trade for a guy like that. He comes in, he has a good season, you reward him. If he doesn't have so much of a good season, you let him go into free agency.
Okay, now that is the last that we're going to talk about the Eagles on today's show, and Will is already shedding tears, and everyone else in the back is celebrating. The final trade for us to talk about was the Jags trading Laviska Shenault to the Panthers.
Yeah, we actually talked about this a little bit in the pre-show, and I was saying, like I said, they drafted him to become that big body slot/wide guy. A lot of people were comparing him to Anquan Boldin, that he was physical, just like you said, Dilly, Debo Samuel-esque kind of guy, but he's had like a lot of injuries, like you said, and he hasn't been able to come through. But the fact that he's being traded this early kind of tells me that I think it comes with the changing of the guard. They're not willing to let him grow and see what he could do under a new regime. They're just willing to sort of move on straight away. So it'll be interesting to see how he's able to sort of rebuild his career, because the talent is there, but we just never got a chance to see it on that train wreck. You know what I mean? That it was last year.
That was the Jags, yeah.
I don't think we would have got a chance to see him play.
Now, if we look at the depth chart for the Panthers, that is Robbie. So he is not going to be starting wide receiver. So he's gone from being a starting player. So they've got DJ Moore, they've got Robbie Anderson, Terrace Marshall Jr., then it's Laviska, and they've also got Rashard Higgins as well.
I think what it means for the Panthers, like Laviska will not get opportunity to compete.
I think he will get a fair amount of ball because
as
of
the season goes on. I think they might use him similarly to how the 49ers might use Debo, as he has that when he gets the ball in his hands, he turns into like a running back basically. He has that can run the ball like a running back type skills. So I think he might rotate and share snaps with some of the wide receivers in the slot because you've got your one and your two in DJ Moore and Robbie Anderson. So LaVisca Chenault sort of like could be built for the slot wide receiver position for the Panthers, and we'll see how the season goes. But at the same time, what will make it very interesting to see is his competition with Rashad Higgins. Because up until the trade for LaVisca, I thought Higgins had an inside track to playing in the slot because of his connection with Baker Mayfield. When they played for the Browns, they had an understanding. Baker has some chemistry with Rashad Higgins. So that's going to play a factor into some of the snaps that LaVisca might get. But all the same, I expect him to push on and maybe make a difference for the Panthers.
Now we'll move on to the notable cuts, because it was cut down day. And there are some surprising ones. Teams have made some pretty bold moves when it comes to cutting players from their roster. And a big one was Alex Leatherwood. Cut by the Raiders. He has now been picked up from waivers by the Bears. But thoughts on the Raiders moving away so quickly from Mr. Holding?
Yeah, I think this is another one of those where I think it's just the remnants of an old regime that they're moving on from. Even when he got drafted, everyone was saying, "What? This guy got picked really?" I mean, he was a good player with regards to like on a lot of teams' board, but he got drafted way earlier than they thought he would in that first round. Everyone thought at best he'd be the tail end of the first round, if not second or third round. But the fact that he got picked up so early, everyone was like, yeah, this is a bit of a reach. So I think the Raiders had time to realize Mr. Holding, and they've seen that perhaps, he's not the player that the Gruden regime thought he was. You know what I mean? So I think they're sort of washing their hands of him and then moving on. But yeah, no, I think the Bears kind of need help, especially on that line. They've had like a historically bad offensive line, which hasn't helped Justin Fields at all. So I think if anyone needs offensive linemen, it's Justin Fields and the Bears.
So what they actually said was, well, not what they said, but if you look at how after the third preseason game, they just knew that they couldn't have him in front of Derek Carr. Like, you've got to protect the asset that you have, and the amount of times that they had good plays and they were nullified completely by ineptitude in front of them.
Yeah,
complete and utter ineptitude.
Here's my question though: so the Raiders are trying to protect Derek Carr. Are the Bears trying to kill Justin Fields then? like, I mean, they claimed him to give him a second chance that he gets. I mean, see, but here's what the NFL affords you: when you're a first round pick, you get given chances.
But
that's why
he's
so
a backup
important.
to Tevin Jenkins.
Well, they don't trust. Maybe they don't trust Jenkins will stay healthy for the whole year. But I swear, even the Bears had reservations about Jenkins. They were thinking about trading him at some point in the offseason. And they didn't do it. I mean, to be honest, as it relates to the Raiders, it goes to show that not every draft guru can actually draft players when they get given the mandate to draft players, because it's an indictment on Mayer, Gruden, and what they did with those 3 picks that they got from that huge trade, and how all the players from that trade are no longer with the Raiders. And then also my little bit on the Bears is I mean, you pick him as a backup. Just again, I think it's for injury insurance. That's
yeah, because if Tevin Jenkins doesn't manage to get his way through the entire season, then they've got to have somebody to fill the boots. The question that came over from YouTube about hooligan fanatics within the NFL and the NBA, quite frankly, no, they don't have it, because they tend to have very strict policies about what you can take into the ground. It's not like Central and Eastern Europe where you can pretty much take anything into the grounds. They have a very stringent they have multiple stages of how you can get into an NFL stadium. They have different security procedures from kind of outer towards the closest one inside to the stadium. So absolutely not. They don't have anything of the sort. But back on to our notable cuts. 49ers, I know we talked about them a lot. Trey Sermon getting cut by the 49ers. Now, 49ers have a quite a large running back room, but is anybody surprised by how quickly they've got rid of him?
I'm not, because I think the 49ers felt like they had enough running backs that fit their system better than Trey Sermon. And I think the reports coming out.
The Eagles claimed him.
Yeah, I saw that earlier that he went to the Eagles, which doesn't bode well for
Miles Sanders.
Yeah, maybe you might be able to shed a little light on that. But why do you guys hate Miles Sanders so much?
Damn it! I thought we were done talking about the Eagles.
Yeah, I honestly.
Why does your team hate him?
I honestly don't know. This is one of the mysteries. They must know something. I don't think it's an off the field issue. I think they perhaps know something, and sometimes we don't see everything as fast.
But he does produce when he's on the field, though. That's
produces when he's on the field. But I'm like, how's his preparation?
He's going to be running back 4 though.
Yeah, I'm like, how's his preparation? Oh no, he's going to be the main guy. He's going to be the head
Trey Sermon's going to be running back
in the committee. Yeah, but Trey Sermon's probably going to come in and slowly eke off the carries, So
no, but listen, he's a running back. He doesn't need much preparation. Just give him the rock, let him run.
Yeah. So I mean, that's the only thing I can think of. It's almost as though sometimes when players don't
blocking is the easiest position to. I'm talking about Miles Sanders here. It's the easiest position to transition to the National Football League because it's the same. Yes, the blocking schemes, which way you have to run to, which hole you have to hit, might be different, but the skill set.
Somewhere, Marcus is tearing his hair out at the disrespect to the running back position.
No, it's true though. It's the most.
It's the easiest position transition, though.
Yeah, it's the easiest one to transition.
People like to talk about it, but it is.
Yeah, it is. It's true. But here's the thing: I don't understand what they're trying to do.
Here's the thing: when Marcus got the playbook when he was playing for the Burners, right? I used to sit with him and I used to go through the playbook with him. And when he played for Farm Knights, what he needed to know is the blocking schemes and where he's running on a particular play. That's all he needed to know.
Yeah, it's true. Which makes me think, I don't know, sometimes if you can rub coaches the wrong way or you do something that perhaps that they don't like or you're consistently tardy at practice, then perhaps they can hold that against you in terms of the amount of reps you're getting. But it just seems to me like they're trying to sabotage this guy. Like at this point, he's going into his last season. They're not going to franchise tag him. They're not going to give him an extension. He's basically going to walk. Or they're going to use that to hold over his head. And then after they pay him less than the market value, then they start running him into the ground. Like, I honestly don't know. I think Miles Sanders is one of those. It's not even a what if situation because we never got to see what he was capable of, but when we do see him play and we get those plays, we see a fluid runner. He's so electric, and I'm there like, how are you not like this guy? Reminds me of like he's more of a pure runner.
Do you know one thing that completely irrelevant to what we're talking about when it comes to the running back room, but I just looked at the depth chart and how much of a guy is Jordan Mailata, because he is like, there was that little scuffle when Hurts got hit out of bounds.
Yep.
And he was like, "That's my quarterback."
Yep.
Yeah, you're not going after him. You're not touching him.
Rightfully so. Yeah, that was a well for uncalled for hit out of bounds. And yeah, Malata is definitely, for someone who hasn't played a lot of football, he's definitely absorbed the culture of what it means to be a starting left tackle in the NFL and protect your QB. And to be honest, I don't think any
He's a strong
linebackers
dude.
want anything to do with this guy because he will
Do-
throw you around like a rag doll if he wants to.
But do you know what I really want? I really want you to, on a couple of plays, just bring in an extra lineman and just hand him off the ball and just let him be a rugby league player for a little bit.
I think that
Like
would
he
be
used to be.
devastating. I think that
Well,
would
you
be
can do that at goal
devastating, and
line.
I wouldn't be surprised if they had a package
because
specifically for that.
he knows how to handle a ball.
Yeah, he knows how to
I
handle the
mean,
ball and run with it.
he can be a
So
goal line back.
I mean, it'll be an interesting package. I wouldn't be surprised if they've got something like that in the playbook,
No,
like an
they
interesting
don't.
package.
We know that they don't, but it's more of just it's a fun one. He's firmly a left tackle nowadays. We're going to keep with the running back theme. Marlon Mack was cut by Houston, and that paves the way for Damian Pierce to be the starter. I would thought Marlon Mack was going to do really well with Houston, considering how talented he was on the Colts roster when he was at the Colts, how capable he was. Obviously, with Jonathan Taylor having such a ridiculous season last year, there was absolutely no room for him to be on the Colts, and that's why we let him go. But Marlon Mack, now I don't know whether he has been claimed. I'm just going to check that now. He hasn't been claimed, I don't believe. So, thoughts on Damian Pierce?
He's really showed out in the preseason and in training camp, and he's really proven, and he's taking that running back one job. It's unfortunate, but like I said, running back is one of those positions whereby you could be a vet, but if a rookie is stronger, faster, quicker, I'll play you in camp. They'll easily let you go. And I would have, I was really rooting for Marlon Mack, but Damian Pierce kind of deserves to be RB1 based on how he's played in the off season.
Especially as a fourth round pick to come in so quickly and just hit the ground running. No pun,
like I said,
pun definitely intended.
This is the reason why running backs can be found anyway. You have a sixth runner that can come in and be a starter day one. This is why we have the debates and all that kind of stuff. To me, like, okay, so here's the thing, right? I mean, I'm not here on running backs. I like running backs, right? But what I'm saying is that they can be found anywhere from round 1 to undrafted free agent. Like, you can find talent. Running backs are a lot. So, hey, but they are special backs though. Let me quantify that. As much
you
as
don't get your Derrick Henrys often. You don't get your CMCs
exactly.
often.
They are
you don't
special
get your
backs
Jonathan
though.
Taylors.
There are some that are like, who they are like upper echelon, and then you have the like. Because when I say upper echelon,
you look like, at Kamara, special back, right? We consider him a special back within the league. But where was he found? In the
third round.
It wasn't the first. Yeah, exactly.
Rounds, yeah.
He wasn't. He was in the what you consider the mid round. So.
No, but here's the thing, though. Kamara has a sketchy college football experience. Alabama, Tennessee. He wasn't really.
I remember watching him in Tennessee.
You know what I'm saying?
And I didn't see any of that.
Florida, yeah.
I didn't see.
Here's the thing, though.
I didn't see any of that in Tennessee.
If Alvin Kamara had been RB1 for Alabama and had put together a special season, because his college career was a bit sketchy. Like, he left Alabama, he transferred to a junior college that ended up in Tennessee. He had a bad college experience, but if he had a solid college experience, he would have been a first round pick. He had that kind of talent, but because you have that sketchy pass that drops you off to the third round and that kind of thing. So at the end of the day, Marlon Mack will land somewhere. I know a team that should sign Marlon Mack. What's Atlanta Falcons saying? Who's their running back? They could give him a call.
Cordell Patterson.
He's
fully
converted. Well, it's either that or punt returner, kick returner. They didn't want to use him in this out wide anymore because his route running was always questionable. So I think it's the best for him anyway. I was going to say, on Damian Pierce, man, they might need to check his the age on his birth certificate. This guy looks like a dude. I'm like, you sure he's 22?
He's 22, bro. I'm just being too much cornbread.
This guy looks like a 32-year-old or something.
Bro,
Okay,
but we all know this. They feed them like
they definitely feed their boys out in the States.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Sony
He
Michel
definitely looks a lot older than he actually is.
cut by the Dolphins. He actually played all right for the Rams last year.
yeah, he did. I also believe that Michelle was part of the reasons why they had such a deep run into the postseason and stuff. Because I don't think if they didn't have Sonny Michelle, they probably would have might not have got. He held the fort till Cam Akers came back towards the playoffs run. So
And he's been picked up by the Chargers. Now, we know that Eckler is the guy for the Chargers. He's going to be the guy. He deserves to be the guy. Also, he is my first pick in one of my fantasy drafts, so he's the guy, and Tony Michel cannot be stealing any of the goal line touches at all. No bias whatsoever. But it's a very good pickup for the Chargers, I think. And
An excellent pickup. I
but
think
he's
they
going to
might
be
use him
his
in like big
running back 3,
Who's the running back 2?
Josh Kelly.
Josh Kelly.
Interesting. They drafted him from UCLA.
So Josh Kelly was capable. So they've got a very good roster for this season, I think. When you consider
do.
that they've got those three, they've got Keenan Allen, you've got Mike Williams, you've got Everett, you've got Parham,
So the
Josh
thing is
Palmer,
here,
Jalen Guyton.
barring
That's a
injury,
lot.
there's no reason why they should have a deep playoff run. Barring injury.
I think it's that division. You look at that whole entire division. That is a tough division.
But right now, I believe they have the best roster, both offense and defense in the division. They kind of do.
They're going to be some fun games to watch. Those AFC West games, they're going to be really, really fun to watch.
I want shootouts.
Yeah, they're going to be some high-scoring games, we would think. But so a couple of other notable cuts. Kellen Mond, second-round pick, previous year, already been cut by the
New
Vikings.
regime. I'll say the regime change could be the reason. Maybe they didn't.
I think this is a
he'd fit their
significant reason
system.
for it. Yeah, a third-round pick, 66th overall. So literally at the start of the third round. And he was claimed off waivers by the Cleveland Browns.
Yeah, Kellen Mond, especially in like the preseason and training camp, there were people saying, he looked okay, he looked good out there. Especially being young. I think he's from Texas A&M, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Texas A&M. So so it's kind of like interesting to see. Like, it would have made sense for him to be that next guy coming through, but I think the Cleveland Browns are kind of preparing for the worst case scenario. Well, they know the scenario right now. They're just making sure that they've got enough people in that quarterback room to help sort of weather the storm. If one guy goes down, then they've got backup. So I think it's interesting, but I don't know. I wanted to see Kellen Mond play.
Point, yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to see Kellen Mond play a few live game snaps. But like you said, regime change. That's not their guy. And they wash their hands of it.
Now, this next one, OJ Howard, who was on Bills, didn't last very long. He lasted 5 months on the team, and he got cut already. Now, considering he was a first-round pick in 2017 for the Bucks, and everyone thought he could be capable, but he's never been at 2020. He started one game. last season he had 135 yards receiving in 9 starts, and he played in all 17. He had 1 touchdown last year. So there seems to be have been a sharp decline in his production. Now the rumor is that he's going to be signing with the Texans. So that'll be an additional piece for them, but do we think he's going to make much of a dent for the Texans?
Well, his production depends on the signal caller, really. And if the signal caller, who I think is okay, who is it? It's Webb, right? Is it Webb? Am I thinking of the
No, David
right person?
Mills. David
Yeah,
Mills.
Dirk Mills. Yeah, so I think it all depends on how he plays. But I think with OJ Howard, he had the spark early on in his career. Like a lot of people were
There was a
hyping
lot
this
of
guy
hype,
up.
yeah.
Yeah, there was a lot of hype because he was basically a tight end, a receiving type tight end, like not really a blocker. So everyone was expecting a lot, and that was at the time where you had like Rob Gronkowski, you had like all the tight ends coming through and playing really well. And I think he's kind of been getting worse over time. And I think this is like that last sink where he's gotten into a situation now where I think every team that signs him knows the best years of him are past. And right now he's just another body on the field that you can have for depth, but you can't really count on him to be that guy at tight end anymore, but it's a shame really, because in the brief moments where he made those big plays, he did look like he was the guy. He was that next great tight end to come through. But yeah,
Well,
like I said, his production.
when you look at the tight ends there in Houston, Brevin Jordan, Pharaoh Brown, it's there for the taking. You can, considering that the Bills had Dawson Knox already.
Yeah,
It was never going to be very easy for him to come in and just swoop and kind of take the tight end one position, considering how good of a player Dawson Knox has been. But so yeah, there's not a lot to be said on that, but it's more of just it's surprising to see such a big name get cut so quickly from a team, particularly. But so what we're gonna finish on is it's not very often that we find a punter in the news, especially a punter who had a lot of preseason highlights of kicking the ball very, very, very far. But
Great talent, though.
unfortunately, some very significantly questionable things have happened in private life mean that he was immediately cut from the team for some allegations of not even, I wouldn't even call them demeanors, for significant sexual misconduct. Does the NFL have a problem? A significant problem that doesn't seem to be going away. We had the whole off-season saga with regards to Deshaun Watson. We've had a very swift kind of cull of Matt Ariza, but when you think somebody actually put a statement, if this had happened to a quarterback that was quite high profile, would the same outcome have happened?
I think sort of not going into the details, but the sheer
No, not the
graphic
details.
nature of-
No, nothing to do with Matt Ariza. I'm talking about the NFL itself. Does the NFL have a problem?
I don't think the NFL has a problem as such because these are
Outside of the NFL sphere kind of things.
Yes, in relation to a lot of these type of sexual misconduct and sexual,
And
cases and
what?
stuff.
Okay, so what I will say, I'll rephrase it in a different way. We seem to have almost every season something bad, significantly bad, that is going on from an NFL perspective in the news. Does it have that problem?
I think it.
Yes.
I think it kind of does because I'm comparing it to like other professional leagues. I can't remember off the top of my head the last time I heard about something like this,
Only the
even from
Premier
season
League.
to season.
The Premier
From
League's
season to
got a
season,
problem.
yeah.
The Premier
But
League's
if you
got
think,
two significant cases which are going on right now.
yeah,
We can't talk about them because obviously
yep,
contempt
yeah. But
with
if you
laws
think
within
about
the
the
UK. But
if you think about the NBA and MLB, like I never hear of this stuff. You know what I mean? And even if it is something that has happened, it's not something that's made public or anything along those terms. One thing I will say about this whole situation is with regards to how the Bills have sort of dealt with it. I think they've acted very swiftly and they have done the right thing as far as they're concerned. In terms of preserving the integrity of the Shield, the Buffalo Bills, and what they stand for, they've obviously released Matt Ariza. Regardless of how he's tried and tested, they've decided to take a stance that just the mere mention or of that kind of activity within their team has no place there.
so Major League Baseball did have a significant case.
Okay.
So Trevor Bauer, a pitcher within the Diamondbacks. No, it wasn't. It started with the Diamondbacks, but within the Dodgers organization, he was banned for 2 seasons. He was banned actually for a total of 324 games, which equals 2
Okay.
seasons.
For a sexual misconduct type.
For without pay for a violation of the league's joint domestic violence, sexual assault and child abuse policy.
Okay, so in that respect, I think it's about time the NFL reviews its policies for sexual misconduct. And generally, the policy when it says you put the league into, I don't know the right words for it, but I think in the CBA the concept about how you bring shame upon the league, basically in quote. So if you do something in the off season, that brings the league into
disrepute, effectively.
into disrepute or something like that, there is a punishment that's going to be dished out. That's different from people that get suspended for, the substance abuse or the PD, that kind of thing. Police, that's different to it. But what I'm saying is that I think it's time the NFL institute type measures like the MLB has, whereby the agreement is that if you have these type of cases and, you are found guilty, whether criminal or civil. I think they need to really go into it and clearly define it. If they, like for example with Deshaun's case, if it turns out to be a civil case, what sort of punishment is it the automatic punishment that the player gets? And it has to be a heavy punishment so that it warns future players that these.
Does it have to be such a punishment that they still don't get their pay from the season?
I agree with that. Yes. Absolutely.
Not the negotiated 11 games. I know that we weren't going to touch on a bit, but that's all we'll say on that.
Absolutely. So what I'm saying is the NFL needs to go back to the drawing board and review their policy regarding these issues, because it's really bringing the NFL negativity that is unwarranted. Now, at the same time, what I consider NFL, you try to put rules, but you can't really control the actions of players when they're in the league or what the player done before they entered the league.
Correct.
Now, my last point is
because that was before he entered the league properly.
Exactly.
Properly.
So that kind of helped with the Bills' decision to just straight out release him. But then your question is a very interesting point. My answer to I'm going to be frank. If let's say Matt Ariza had been
a star quarterback,
first round quarterback. Okay, let's flip it around. If he had
I wouldn't say first round quarterback. If he was a
first round quarterback, I think they wouldn't release him now. I think they'll wait for the process to play out. They might put him on their commissioner's reserve or suspended list or whatever.
We
But I
saw.
think, although the details for this case, when you read about it, is very graphic,
Mhm.
I don't know. Because we all know quarterbacks are treated differently
That's the
to
cynical
other
kind of like.
players.
It's a cynical, the way of thinking about it. But I think we've seen, particularly from the NFL network presenters, the female ones particularly, saying that the league needs to buck up. It really needs to buck up because it's got an image problem as to whether it is really woman friendly or not.
But
Really.
that's what I said. The NFL is going to have tougher measures, as in, like, they've got to have some sort of agreement, some sort of review of this policy, whereby if you have now, as much as we say the NFL can get tougher and institute MLB type punishment, whereby you can suspend it for 2 full seasons without pay. What about situations whereby the player's innocent and someone's just flat out lying on them?
So,
And let's say
an
it goes to the
example of Trevor
court
Bauer
and
still trying to prove his innocence.
so is it a case of we ban the player for, let's say, a year without pay or 2 years without pay, and if the player is proven to be innocent, does he get all the money that he's lost out back?
That's the legal minefield that the NFL would have to kind of look at when it comes to a complete revision of the policy. I know it was quite a deep kind of ending, but on Tuesday we will be having another show, and it is going to be our prediction of the winners of all the divisions, the awards. We may potentially have a guest star, but that I will trying to see if our lovely friend from across the pond is going to be available for that one. But if not, it will definitely be the three of us for that. But it's been great to get the three amigos back together again.
Yep, for sure.
Because
Yeah,
there's been so much to talk about, and then Tuesday next week we have that show, and then Thursday we have the predictions, the discussion of the week 1 games, leading up to Thursday night football, because we have all 32 teams in action over that weekend, starting with the Thursday night game. So it's goodbye from me, and goodbye from Will and Peter.
Yep. Over
And
and
we will
out. Great
catch
show.
everybody next time. What I will do, actually, before we all actually fully disappear, we are going to have a quick check of who is online on Madden. And we're going to send over a raid to a Madden streamer. And actually, we're going to send it to somebody who was recently cut, actually, by the Chicago Bears. And he is somebody who I'm quite familiar with, and that is Darrington Evans. So we're going to send it over to a Madden streamer. There don't tend to be a lot of NFL talk shows talking on Twitch, but we will send everybody across to him. So I'm just setting that raid up right now. And hope everybody has a lovely weekend, and we will catch everybody next week. 3, 2, 1, and bye-bye.
Over and out. Enjoy.
Over and out.
It's dope.